Once upon a time, there was a king who had 3 daughters. All 3 princesses were equally beautiful, but their personalities were very different. The 2 elder princesses lived a life of dependence. They both married wealthy sons of noblemen and, surrounded by riches, spent their days indulging in leisure. All household work was handed over to servants. The youngest princess, however, thought and acted differently. She refused to rely on wealth and instead worked diligently. She was determined not to marry into a rich family. One day, because she refused the proposal of the prime minister's son, her father, the king, expelled her from the palace. He gave her a blind horse and said, "You refuse to live in wealth, then leave this house. I want to see how you make your fortune with just those 2 hands. You are forbidden from returning to the palace until you have more riches than your 2 sisters." The youngest princess showed no sorrow. She gently stroked the blind horse and said, "One day I will become rich and cure this horse's blindness." Then she climbed onto the horse's back and quietly set off. Though blind in both eyes, the horse walked steadily. At dusk, it stopped in front of a small hut by a forest path. The princess dismounted and entered the hut. She found it belonged to an old widow, over 60, who lived with her 30-year-old son. He made a living by burning charcoal, so people called him the charcoal burner. After some conversation, the princess introduced herself and explained her situation. She asked to stay and become the old woman's daughter-in-law. Alarmed, the widow clasped her hands together and refused profusely. The charcoal burner also declined. He offered the princess a night's rest and said he would escort her wherever she wished to go in the morning. But the youngest princess sincerely insisted on staying, to become both the charcoal burner's wife and the widow's daughter-in-law. Seeing no way to refuse, they reluctantly agreed. After a simple meal of vegetables, the princess asked about all the household tasks and daily routines. The 3 of them chatted warmly late into the night. The next morning, everyone resumed their usual duties. The old woman rose early to cook for her son. The charcoal burner carried water for his mother. The princess also got to work, waking earlier than she ever did in the palace, sweeping the yard, cleaning the house, and letting the horse graze. After breakfast, the charcoal burner headed to the forest with his knife and baskets. The princess wanted to go too, but the widow asked her to stay and help dig the garden to sow corn in time. She worked from dawn until dusk and even cut extra grass for the horse's evening meal. In the evening, the charcoal burner returned with a load of charcoal. The princess greeted him at the gate. From then on, he no longer needed to go to the market. His wife sold the charcoal for him, allowing him more time in the forest and increasing their output. The princess gradually became accustomed to all the work. After each trip to the market, she would return and head straight to the garden. One day, while digging, she struck something hard and yellow, about the size of an egg. She picked it up. It was a lump of gold. The old woman laughed when she saw the princess put the stone in her pocket, thinking it was just something a former royal might keep for decoration. The next day, the princess found another similar gold nugget, and again, she put it in her pocket and stored it by her bedside. Day after day, she and her mother-in-law continued gardening. The charcoal burner still worked the forest, returning each evening with a heavy load of charcoal. Despite being busy, the princess never forgot the blind horse. Each day, she gathered extra grass and leaves for it. One day, while taking the horse to drink, she met a hermit. Surprised to see a healthy but blind horse, the hermit asked about it. The princess said she wished to cure its eyes. The hermit advised, "To cure your horse's blindness, you must feed it with the man leaves from the summit of Fairy Mountain, and give it water from the sacred spring there, for 3 months straight." Grateful, the princess began the task that very evening. Every afternoon after gardening, she would climb Fairy Mountain to gather leaves and fetch water for the horse. She continued this for 3 full months, and the horse truly regained its sight. One day, the princess asked to follow her husband into the forest, but he declined, afraid she wouldn't handle the steep paths. Waiting until he left, she secretly followed him. Upon arriving, she asked him how to cut trees and chop branches, then joined the work. She soon became adept, and piles of logs began stacking around their charcoal kiln. She suggested building 1 or 2 more kilns. The next day, while helping dig for a second kiln, the princess unearthed 2 more gold nuggets, and then a few more. Delighted, she shouted with joy. Over time, the couple discovered even more gold. The princess instructed her husband to keep it secret and gradually transport the treasure home. From then on, every evening they carried home charcoal, and the horse carried another load. Hidden inside each were 10 to 15 gold nuggets. Over 3 months, they moved the entire treasure trove and buried it safely. The cornfield they had worked so hard on was ready to harvest. They built extra huts to store the yield. Now they had food all year and plenty of gold for spending. Seeing that they now had 5 to 10 times more gold than her royal father, the princess decided to build a mansion. She asked her husband to go to the palace and measure the king's residence to replicate it. The charcoal burner obeyed. When the king saw him measuring, he roared, "Who are you? What are you doing?" Unfazed, he replied, "I am a charcoal burner, husband of the youngest princess, your son-in-law. At her request, I've come to measure the royal palace so we can build a home like this." Enraged, the king shouted and had him thrown out. The elder princesses came out to insult and mock him. He said nothing and quietly left. Back home, he told his wife everything. The princess comforted him. "One day, father and my sisters will understand. For now, let's be patient." She hired a team of builders. They worked day and night, and in just 2 months, a magnificent palace was finished. On moving day, she sent her husband to invite the king and queen. This time, the king didn't shout, but mocked. "Tell her to send a golden palanquin and a golden hammock if she wants us to come." The princess immediately commissioned a golden palanquin and hammock to fetch the royal guests. The king, though still skeptical of his defiant daughter, was curious to see her accomplishments. He went with the queen and the 2 elder princesses. They arrived to find the house packed with guests. The grand mansion gleamed with gold, and every pillar and beam was intricately carved. The king was astonished. The 2 elder sisters stood speechless, admiring everything. Just then, the once blind horse neighed. The charcoal burner led it out. The horse stood tall, ears perked, stamping its hooves proudly as if to greet the royal family. Its eyes were bright and healthy. The king, moved, stroked its neck affectionately. After 3 days of feasting, the king and queen stayed longer. They asked many questions. Hearing the youngest princess recount all that had happened, the king was full of praise. Knowing that the elder princesses had squandered much of their wealth, the youngest gifted each sister several dozen gold nuggets. She earnestly invited her mother to stay. From then on, the couple lived peacefully with both mothers, in happiness and prosperity.